It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. If you haven't already, take a moment, pause this episode, leave us a 5-star rating and review. It helps us go up in the rankings, helps us reach more people. So thank you in advance for your support there. So excited about this episode. I know it's going to be a whole lot of game drop. Today, we have John Casmon out of Cincinnati. John, really appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, Sam, thanks for having me today, man. Excited to be here.
Definitely. So, John, tell the people who you are and what you do.
Yeah, listen, I am a former corporate executive, advertising, marketing professional turned full-time real estate professional. And essentially what I do is I help busy professionals with a W-2 job invest in real estate. And we buy larger apartment buildings and we create passive income doing that. Now, I started with a duplex, just 2-unit property. I house hacked it. We can get into that strategy. And then slowly started to invest in smaller multifamily before moving over to larger commercial properties. And a lot of ups and downs along the way. But I'm excited for what we do. And more importantly, I'm excited to help other people get involved with real estate without having to do all the same work that we did.
Definitely. So take us to the beginning. Take us to the beginning of that real estate journey. How did you get started? And, what was it about real estate where you're like, you know what, this is something I want to get into?
Yeah. So for me, my journey really starts back in Detroit. So I was working in the automotive industry, and this is back in 2007, 2008, and, doing well. Had a good job in advertising at an automotive firm, doing really well there. And, the economic recession started to show its head at the company. And I remember watching the impact it had, first watching it, then feeling it and living it and all of those things. And in short, man, we went through bankruptcy. And we went through multiple rounds of layoffs where people who were told, go to college, get a good job, work that until you retire. That was their plan. And I watched these people with, 20 plus years in this company get let go with no plan B. And I remember feeling a great sense of empathy for those individuals, and what they were dealing with and going through. But I also remember thinking like, all right, how do I prevent this from happening to me? I mean, luckily enough, at the time I was, young and single, didn't have kids. So if the worst case would have happened, I would have figured it out and been okay. But I ended up thriving during that time frame. But that moment stuck with me, and I wanted to start investing in real estate. The only problem was it was Detroit in 2008, and the market was continuing to drop, and it wasn't the best time to be investing. So you fast forward a couple of years, I moved to Chicago. And I was ready to start investing in real estate. So for me, again, it came back to how do you insulate yourself from the unexpected, whether it be the loss of a W-2 job or an expense that just pops up, all those kind of things. So we ended up buying a 2-unit property, and we lived in 1 unit, rented out the other. Popular strategy called house hacking. And the thing that makes it amazing is you can get in with just as little as 3.5% down with the FHA loan. Now, FHA is not the only strategy. It's not the only way to get in. But if you are currently renting, this is a great one, because if you can find a 2 to 4 unit, I mean, if you do the math, let's just say you buy a $200,000 property, 3.5% is only $7,000. So if you could save up $7K, you could go buy a 2 to 4 unit property for $200,000. So it's just a great strategy to get started, if you are looking to really get some traction with your portfolio.
Definitely. So you got started, you got that duplex. Take us back to that time. How did it feel? Were you going into it with like, oh, I'm going to invest, I'm going to rent this out, help with a mortgage? Or were you like, oh, I got a duplex, I'll rent it out and we'll see what happens? Like, what was your mindset around that time?
No, this was all intentional. I mean, this is something that, again, from the time I was in Detroit, I wanted to do this, because the whole point was when I read a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Many of your listeners may be familiar with it, but it talks about real estate investing. The other things it talks about is really developing a skill, or working to develop a skill, not just for a paycheck. Mm-hmm. So ever since, again, 2008, 2009, I was trying to become a real estate investor. It's just the market I was in was not conducive to me investing, and I didn't know how long I was going to be there. So it didn't make sense for me to invest in. So when I moved to Chicago, I was very intentional about networking and, going around the city and talking to brokers and agents and really trying to find a property that would be a rental property. And I had come across this house hacking or, owner occupant strategy. So I knew I wanted to do that. It was then just a matter of where. So once we found the property, very intentional of being, a property owner, managing that. I read up on, all the landlord and tenant ordinance stuff. I had been talking and networking with other investors who were in the space. So it was all very intentional. I was ready to do it. All of that said, I was still nervous, right? I mean, you can read all you want, there's always going to be a little trepidation when you pull the trigger. But what gave me comfort, and I tell anybody this, if you want to feel more comfortable, you got to hang around people who are doing what you want to do. Because if you're not surrounding yourself with those kind of people, and you're only surrounding yourself with people who haven't done that, or all they see is fear, then that's what's going to start, creeping up more and more. Is their words in the back of your head. Oh, my cousin had a deal, he lost a lot of money on that, or, they tore his house up. And those kind of things start to, take over your mind if you let it. So by spending your time networking with other people in a space, particularly at meetups or RIA events, or even, definitely listen to podcasts, but also there's a lot of virtual events right now. You can also get on forums like Bigger Pockets. So by talking and connecting with individuals who are in the space, you'll get more comfortable, because the reality is you just need to be resourceful. If any of those things do happen, and they might happen, the real question is, what do you do? How do you respond? How do you protect yourself from this happening in the first place? How can you be proactive about it, right? If you can figure those things out, then a lot of those fears start to melt away because you've got a game plan. So that was what I did. And ultimately, it wasn't until I owned that property, and then really the first time somebody paid rent, I was like, okay, I think we could do this. But I didn't know if people were going to pay rent. Yeah. I thought they were going to come around and they were going to look at me and like, I ain't paying you nothing, man. Get out of here. And I was like, man, I'm going to have to deal with this. So it really, again, having a plan helped tremendously, but then also having resources around you was just immense.
Definitely. Yeah. And a couple of things you mentioned there. So, definitely important to be resourceful. And the other thing is that it's inevitable. You're going to meet somebody who says you can't do it or you shouldn't. And maybe they're trying to protect you. Could be a family member, could be a friend. I've experienced the same thing. But you can't listen to those voices. You got to trust the work you're doing. You got to trust the research you've done, and, things are going to happen. You just got to figure it out. And ultimately you get to that point where you get that first rent check and you're off to the races.
Yeah, man. Couldn't agree more.
Definitely. So where did things go from there? You got your first property, your house hacking. How did things develop from there? What was next for you?
So listen, man, that was around 2012. The market was slowly starting to take off. And that property, we actually didn't even know about the FHA thing when we were saving. So we were saving way more money. So when we bought the property, we actually had extra money that we invested into it. So we fixed up, the owner's unit, which was our unit. We fixed that up. We fixed up some exterior things. We invested more into the property. We saved up our money again for another year and a half, almost 2 years. And then we started to look for another deal to buy. And the agent we were looking at, she said, you know what did you buy that property for? And we told her, and she said, I think y'all have a lot of equity in that property. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I said, maybe what we put in, but I don't think it's more than that. And she's like, no, I think you do. And we did not believe her. And sure enough, we were weighing our options, and we were maybe going to do another FHA, but we had to refinance out of the first FHA. So we decided to get an appraisal done. And the appraisal came back, and we had created over 6 figures worth of equity in that property. So
what period of time was that?
Less than 2 years. So It floored me. It absolutely floored me. And I thought it was a mistake. I remember I got the email. I called my wife. I said, yo, do you see this email? And she had just opened it up, and we were both on the floor like, yo. And the reason I tell that is because it was that moment that the belief became real. I felt like I knew real estate investing could work. It was a great tool, but it was always a get rich slow kind of thing. I made more money on that, creating equity on that deal than I made in a year. Right. And then the mind just starts to go, well, what if you could do that more? And like, man, and all of these ideas start to come. So it's like, well, how do I do this more? So we were doing all of that to buy another property. We ended up buying a 3-unit building. But on the same notion, we were trying to figure out, well, what's the right path forward then? Because we were saving money. We didn't touch any of that, right? But we were saving money and looking to invest. But, it takes a while to save up a considerable amount of money to go buy rentals. So we took the line of credit. We used that actually to buy an 8-unit property. And at that moment, I was completely tapped. We tapped out our equity. We tapped out the line of credit. And we still had equity in these projects, but I wasn't getting the cash flow that I was looking for. So I had to step back and say, well, how do we actually scale this thing? And I remember meeting a young lady at one of these meetups, and I watched her scale her portfolio from 3 units to 9 units to 90 units. And it was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen. Wow. And when she told me she was up to 90 units, I was shocked. And I said, how'd you do it? I said, you know what? Can we go to breakfast or something? I would love to just sit down and, learn more. And that's exactly what we did. And she introduced me to this idea of partnering with other people. And I obviously knew people were doing that or could do that, but it wasn't something that I realistically saw as an option for me until she and I had that conversation. And it goes back to limiting beliefs, right? Because we kind of have this mindset of, here's what I can do, or I'm not comfortable doing that, or here's what could go wrong. And for me, I didn't want to be responsible for someone else's money. I still felt like there was risk in what I was doing. There's risk in investment, right? No one really sat down and taught me how to be a great investor. So for me, I knew what I was doing was working, but I couldn't quite articulate why it was working, right? More importantly, I couldn't tell you how to avoid it going wrong, right? And it's like when you're winning. When you're winning, it's great, you're winning, but you don't really learn a whole lot from winning. You learn from losing. And that really forces you to go back. And I wasn't ready to start working with other people because I hadn't lost yet. And I knew it was, I don't want to call it beginner's luck, but I knew it wasn't like I was this savant investor who had a whole, strategy planned out. So it's like, I really need to take the time to get better, to really understand this investing thing at a deeper level that I can quantify, that I can qualify. So when we're looking at opportunities, we absolutely know what we're doing, and I can move with confidence when I'm talking to potential investors. So I actually took a quick step backwards, hired a mentor, and that really allowed me to get some clarity on what I needed to do going forward.
Got it. And, I think that self-reflection piece is huge. I think it's great that you realized where you needed to grow and that you needed to get a little more information before taking steps forward. So talk to us about like what that mentor helped you with and what you were able to do after being under that mentorship.
Yeah, man. So it was a couple of things. And I think the first one is just understanding the process. I had never raised $1 from anyone before. So in my head, it was like, almost like those multi-level marketing schemes, right? Where, it's like, okay, I got to go sit here and ask all these people to invest. Very uncomfortable, right? But what really helped me was recognizing that we really provided value to other people. I had at this point invested 10 years of knowledge, at least, in trying to learn and figure out this business, going back to my time in Detroit. Even though I hadn't been investing for 10 years, I had been working this plan for 10 years, in my head, between the books that I was reading, the events I was attending, the podcasts I was listening to, the people I was networking with, the events I was going to, right? I've been working and, getting better and better and better every day for about 10 years. So understanding how you can help people and that you actually do have value, that you do have knowledge that you can provide to other people, and that not everybody wants to be, an investor who invests 10 years to learn all of this, right? Some people just want to say, hey, I heard real estate could work. Cool. Let me write a check. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what being an investor means. Most of us have a 401k or some kind of retirement account of some sort, right? Do we know every company and the businesses that are, 401ks are invested in? No, of course not. But you make your return off of it, right? And that's all you really need to know. And investing could be the same thing. So for me, it was understanding the value and the service that we provide that allowed me to change my perspective. Whereas maybe it started off from a selfish standpoint to say, well, hey, maybe these people could help me buy these properties. And then what I realized is, well, actually, maybe I can help these people invest in real estate and we can partner up. They get some value, I get some value. So it works out for both of us. So then it became less about me asking people for money and then more about me presenting an opportunity for people to partner with me. And I could share with them what we were doing, who was on my team, and all those kind of things. So that helped tremendously with that mentor. The other major thing it did was I watched this person grow their portfolio. When I met them, they had a $7 million portfolio, which was huge to me at the time. In my mind, that was huge. They went from 7 million to just around 2 billion. And when you watch someone grow $193 million or whatever the number is, right? Portfolio, a $1.93 million portfolio in front of you, you learn a thing or two. And it also changes your perspective of what's possible. At that time, I really just wanted somebody to partner with me on my next 8 unit. And then I'm watching this guy go out and buy 100+ unit complexes and raise millions of dollars for it. And it really made me realize that I think this is bigger than what I'm envisioning. And that allowed me to really commit to this and do things like launch a podcast, do things like launch a meetup, do things like, speak in front of other people, create a website and all those kind of things where I could share what it is that we do. So the mindset itself, I think, was bigger than anything else because I actually watched this person grow right in front of me.
Amazing. So you started, you got a couple of properties under your belt, you got this mentorship. After learning that you wanted to get into the larger multifamily space, getting into raising money and all those things. So the mentorship is done. You got all the information. Like, what do you do after that? Do you find like your first big deal? Do you start raising money? Like, what did you do from that point?
Yeah, we started looking for our first big deal and didn't have to be a huge deal, but we started looking for our next deal. We had a hard time finding it. Here's the thing they don't tell you. When you are doing your own deals, it's a little bit easier because you only need to worry about the returns for yourself. But when you have investors, well, now the deal's got to be juicy enough where you can pay that investor whatever returns they need, and it's still worthwhile for you to do. So as we started looking at opportunities, they just wasn't enough there, at least not for the work we were looking to do. I wasn't trying to take on a crazy heavy lift project. So we had to step back again and say, okay, what are some other ways to approach this? Maybe we need to change markets. Maybe we need to partner with other people. Maybe we need to go bigger, which seems scary, but that's ultimately what we did. The last deal I did by myself was 8 unit property. The next deal we did was a 192 unit complex in Texas. And we ended up partnering with someone on that deal. They found it. They were the lead operators. We came in and helped them with marketing and, helping with investor relations and help with some other asset management things. And we were able to bring that deal to folks in our network. And that was really important for us because we were talking to these people about all the great benefits of real estate investing, particularly commercial real estate investing. And they were looking for those benefits. But what good is that if we don't have a deal? So we had to get a deal. And this presented an opportunity for us that we could get in front of them. It was a win-win situation for all the parties involved and allowed us to really get off to the races with our business.
Definitely. How long would you say it took to find that first deal?
Probably about a year.
Wow.
Probably about a year going from there because we were, really focused on our backyards. I was looking heavily in my market of Chicago. I was also looking in the Cincinnati market. And I really was not open to the idea of partnership. So I was looking, and I also had a full-time job. I had a lot of things I was doing at the time, right? And that's something I want to get into a little bit, because if there's a mistake that I made, it was trying to be the lead on all these things at once. And real estate investing is a team sport. If you're buying single family houses, by all means, you can run it yourself. But when you're talking about multifamily, particularly larger multifamily, you have to have a team around you, because it is virtually impossible for you to find a great deal, underwrite that deal, get it under contract, have the net worth and liquidity and all the other bank requirements that they're looking for, be able to raise all the capital, oversee the management and execution of the deal, handle all the paperwork and everything else. It's just too much. There are a lot of moving things, and it has to move fairly quickly. So you really do need people to help you. Even if they work for you, you need more people than just yourself trying to do all of these different tasks, or you're going to get burned out really quick. So it took a while for me to recognize that and be open to the idea of partnership. And then once we did, that kind of allowed us to get a little bit more traction.
Definitely. So when you're thinking about a deal like that, right? Like 100 plus units, and you're looking for markets, like what are the things that you're looking for? Would you say it's the similar as to what you were looking for with like 2 unit, 8 units? Like what are you looking for in the market? What are you looking for in the deal to make it worthwhile?
It's a great question. So here's how I think about it. And when I launched my podcast, it's Multifamily Insights. But when I initially launched it, it was called Target Market Insights. And the reason I launched it was I was trying to find the best places to invest. And I wanted to know how other investors were finding them. What criteria did they use? Where did they pull their data from? What resources did they tap into? And we got a lot of those answers, on that show. So I felt pretty good about that and was able to pivot. But to answer that question, when I was in Chicago, I felt like I had my thumb on the pulse. So I really didn't need a whole lot of data, right? I was talking to people. I had colleagues and coworkers. I would ask where you're renting, where you moving to, what are you looking at? And you just had a sense of like where you wanted to invest. I was going to events. I'm talking to other investors, right? So that was more intuitive because I was having so many conversations. When I started to move away from Chicago, it became less intuitive. And what I found is I was really relying on people's opinions. When I started looking at Cincinnati, well, one person might say, oh, go to the West Side. The West Side's great. They got great cash flow there. Someone else would say, hey, man, don't go to the West Side. Go to the East Side. That's where all the appreciation is, or that's where, the better prices or the better homes are. So now you've got these different factors. Well, I want both, right? I don't want just pure cash flow and no appreciation ever. And I don't want something that won't appreciate or won't cash flow, but may appreciate, or that's really the only play there. So I'm looking for this balance of both. Well, how do I figure out, what I take away based on that feedback? So I found myself having a hard time trusting the intel I was getting, and I didn't have my thumb on the pulse, right? So like, I don't know what drove their decision and the biases that they have.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm talking in Chicago, I'm like, I'm seeing the young people. I'm knowing who I want to rent to. Here, most of the people I'm talking to are giving this advice. They don't even rent. They live in a suburb somewhere.
Right.
So how do you really know where renters are going and where they want to rent and all of those kind of things, right? So I started to really focus more on data points and helping me understand, like, okay, here are the things to look for. So I will tell you, there are 6 main things we focus on when it comes to finding great places to invest. And I'll give you a couple of cheat sheets for your listeners as well. But the first thing we're looking at is population. I'm looking at population from a macro standpoint, and I want to know, is this market growing in population? Is it stagnant, or is it declining? You ideally want to invest in a growing market. I'll be honest though, if you have a 2-unit property, it's not going to matter quite as much. You could find 2 people to rent your 2-unit property, right? But if you have a 200-unit property, it does matter more, because at a certain point, the economics of scale start to play in. You're not going to find 200 people that are going to pay a premium on rent because they like your finishes, right? Like, that's just not going to happen. But you can find 2 people on a duplex who just, think your unit's cute and they just like the finishes used and they're willing to pay whatever you ask for, right? That's not going to happen on a scale. On that level of scale, the balances and just the math is going to come out with probability. So you have to really understand what's happening. And for us with population, it's real simple. Are more people moving to an area? Is demand increasing, or is that demand decreasing? That's what I want to know. Because if demand is increasing, then the next logical thing is, well, if it's increasing, then maybe rents will increase, right? And we should have strong interest in this property. So that's the thing we're looking at with population. Well, what drives population? Jobs. So I want to now look at job growth. What's happening with our employers moving to this area? Are people leaving this area? What's going on there? Industry diversification. Okay. What jobs are there? What employers are there? Again, I was in Detroit. Detroit was heavily driven by the automotive industry. It's doing a really good job of diversifying now. But I will tell you, when the economic recession hit, when I'm in the automotive industry, the entire city felt it. It didn't matter what your job was, whether you worked at, the grocery store or a bank, or you were an attorney. It did not matter. Your business suffered because the entire city and the entire region suffered based on that industry. If you are investing in areas where there's more of a diverse economy, well, you're not as reliant on that. That was one of the reasons I really liked Chicago, because they had, packaged goods, they had financial industry, they had, advertising, they had so many different things, health services. You have so many different industries that are there that no one industry is going to take down the whole sector. So that's something that's really important. Think about Vegas and tourism, right? COVID hits, no travels there. Markets like that can really suffer. So you have to keep those kind of things in mind when you're looking at it too. So those are the three things from a market standpoint, right? We talked about population, we talked about job growth, we talked about industry diversification. From a multifamily standpoint, I'm looking at supply and demand. So again, how much new construction is taking place? Is this a landlord-friendly market, right? Is it easy to do business? Is it hard to do business? What are the laws like there? And then finally, I'm taking a look at overall rent growth. Are rents going up? Are they down, or are they stagnant? So those are 6 things, 6 big and long things, but I try to pay attention to those things whenever I'm looking at a new market.
Definitely. Hey, I hope y'all taking notes, because he just dropped a whole bunch of gems right there. Awesome. So you got that first deal done. Talk to me about how that felt, because it was a long road, right? You're talking about 10 plus years, and you're investing and learning, and boom, you hit this home run to start off the next phase. How did that feel?
It felt great. I mean, it did. It felt great because, again, it was real. I'm a person who, I'm very confident, but behind that confidence is like the fear of God, just like, all right, you better figure out how to make this happen, and the culmination of that is a comforting feeling. And I mean that in the way of, you have to believe in yourself based on the work you put in. And I have put in a lot of work, and seeing the fruition of that work come together, it allowed me to believe that, okay, you can do this, you can scale, you can grow. I think many people have like this imposter syndrome, whether they want to talk about it or not. And, until you've done something, there's some doubt on your ability to actually do it. No matter how confident you are, until you've done it, you're like, well, I think I can do it, but you haven't done it yet, right? So for me, crossing that hurdle, going from I think I can do it to I've done it and I'm going to continue to do it, that allowed me to really shape this thing up and be more intentional about how we build. I talk to a lot of investors who are starting out who tell me, hey, John, I want to get into that business as well. I want to syndicate. And I say, great. One thing you need to do is you need to understand who you're helping. And that also helped me tremendously, was stepping back, tapping into my marketing background, and understanding that everything starts with who you are trying to serve. I worked on Nike, Coors Light, Mountain Dew, all sorts of brands, and we always had a customer in mind. And in this case, if you're raising money for syndications or for real estate deals, or for any business, quite frankly, you really have to get clarity on who you're helping, what their challenges are, and how you are uniquely positioned to help them.
Are you looking for a community of like-minded individuals and access to experts in real estate?
Yeah.
Are you interested in real estate but need more support and guidance?
You know who it is?
The Black Real Estate Dialogue presents the Real Estate Investing Community. No matter how much or how little real estate experience you have, we've created a community for you because your perspective is important. All right, tell me, where's the number one place where you can do Q&A with experienced guest speakers 2 times per month? How about unlimited access to past guest speakers' recordings? What about a private Slack channel to engage in daily discussion with everybody in the community to share resources and support each other? Head on over to blackrealestatedialogue.com. That's blackrealestatedialogue.com. It's the real estate investing community presented by the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Come join us today.
So if you can do that, that sets you up for a lot of success. And then you have to focus on 3 key things for yourself.
Definitely. And there's one thing you mentioned there that I don't want people to gloss over. So you mentioned that you leaned on your advertising background, your marketing background, which was your 9-to-5 job. And I'm sure you see it all the time. We're in interesting times right now on the internet. There seems to be 2 sides. One side is like job shaming, and the other side is like you can actually use your job, use the skills from your job on real estate or your business ventures, and they can, in many cases, go hand in hand. So can you talk a little more about that and just how your 9-to-5 background has helped you in what you're doing now?
Yeah, I'll go back to that Rich Dad reference I made earlier, right? So I always hear people talk about that book getting them into real estate. But the thing that jumped out to me even more than that was how his rich dad developed skills with different jobs and then took those skills that he used as an entrepreneur. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. And what became critical for me when I left the automotive industry, I was working at General Motors. When I left GM, I left intentionally to develop my skills as an advertising professional. Right. I had a great job. I was getting, I was doing well. I certainly had a lot of perks in that role, but I didn't see how I could continue to develop that skill. I could develop sales and organizational type skills, but not to be a better marketer because I was selling a $50,000 vehicle. Right. I mean, that's a tough sale. So to sell different types of things for me and to develop different types of campaigns and understand how to engage with someone at a, convenience store versus just at a car dealership, that was an important skill for me to try to figure out and tap into the knowledge. So I think everybody has to understand you want to leverage the skills you have. And if you are about being an entrepreneur, that's great. If you just want to be an entrepreneur because you hate your job, you have other issues, right? Like it's not just that. You want to do things that you enjoy. And then I think you want to get to the point where you control your future and control your time. For me, the marketing was key. I've always loved the marketing. I always enjoyed what I was doing. It's part of the reason I was able to be successful. Part of the reason I had the accolades that I was able to achieve when I was in marketing. So when I moved into real estate, you're right. It took a minute for it to click that, oh, this is marketing too. And when I did, then I was able to kind of get a little bit more traction. But you do want to take those skills. You want those transferable skills. And you want to be able to apply them because that's the way you grow. And maybe for you, it's not marketing. Maybe it's finance. Well, guess what? It's the same kind of thing. If you are great with finance and you can figure out how to parlay those skills into a business, then you can grow, whether it be real estate or something else, you can grow and expand through that. Maybe you are great in HR or, operations or something else. Figure out how to leverage those skills that you're honing in the part of your job that you do enjoy. And the likelihood is you can definitely in real estate, whatever it is you enjoy, I promise you could do it in real estate. You like taking photos? I promise you there's people crushing it as like real estate photography, or again, we're doing this podcast right here. We got the video on, people sitting there shooting video, right? If you got camera production, whatever it is in business, you can do it in real estate. I'm telling you that. So what you figure out what you enjoy and then figure out what aspects of it do you want to bring to life.
Definitely. So after that first deal, you're feeling good and you're probably on a high. What happened after that? Was it just like kind of managing that property with the team? Were you looking for other deals? Like what was the direction that the business took after that?
Yeah, we're definitely managing that first deal, looking for deals. So the next one was a project I bought, 28 units. I had a private investor partner with me on that deal here in Cincinnati. So then I was, really leading the operations on that one. The next deal we bought another 388 units, so a 2-property portfolio. One was 190, the other one was 198 units. So we bought those in Texas, similar as that first deal with that same group. So yeah, we started to expand and grow. I mean, it took some time. Obviously, this is all over maybe the next year and a half. So it took a little bit of time to get kind of that momentum, but definitely started to grow and to continue to connect. I will tell you this though. We had a lot of success on the first deal. As we did subsequent deals, it wasn't quite as easy, particularly when it came to raising capital from our investors. Mm-hmm. So one thing I had to do at that point was step back and say, whoa, okay, well, what worked great on the first deal that maybe didn't work as great this last time? And I realized that I needed to create better systems and better processes. So now what I tell everyone, and I have some people that I coach on this as well, but I tell them, you really have to create a process to attract investors. And in fact, there are 3 C's to attract investors consistently. And the first C is confidence, right? You have to know your stuff. And what I mean is, I'm not talking about like blind hubris, right? And just being, confident, walking over, I could do whatever. I'm talking about really putting in the work. I mentioned how I was prepping for this 10 years before I started doing it, between the books, the podcast, the meetups, all of those things lead up to it, right? So that confidence comes from knowing your stuff. And you have to be confident if you're going to work with other investors. And that confidence can't be faked. You want to make sure you're truly confident, right? You want to underwrite so many deals that when you find one, it's a deal because you've looked at so many deals, right? Yep. You want to be confident in your actions based on the work you put in. So confidence is key. Make sure you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing so you can operate out of a place of confidence. That second C is credibility. Okay. Now, with the confidence, I didn't mention experience at all. If you've got experience, great. But confidence comes from putting in the work, not necessarily experience. Credibility, you do need to have some experience. So what skills do you have that are transferable? Again, for me, I didn't have a long real estate background, but I did have experience as a marketing advertising professional. I did have experience leading the Buick brand, coming out of bankruptcy to being the hottest brand in America. I did get recognized by Black Enterprise Magazine as one of the top advertising marketing professionals in the country. I did oversee a $100 million advertising campaign. I say all those things because sometimes you got to remind yourself of what you can do and what you have done so that when you look at, is it credible or believable that I can go out there and be on a team that can acquire a large apartment building because I haven't done it yet? Yes, I can, right? I haven't done, I didn't lead those things until I did them, mm-hmm. right? So, but those experiences, they prepare you. And that's why I go back to that corporate thing that you mentioned. It's great if you got that corporate experience because you're learning that and you're doing that while somebody else is paying you a salary to do that. And if you mess up, it's not the end of the world, right? Versus if you're an entrepreneur, you make a mistake like that, it could be the end of your business. So I definitely think it's important to gain those skills that are transferable that help you build credibility. The other thing is you got to surround yourself with people. If you don't have experience, somebody on that team needs to, whether it is your partner, a mentor, the property managers, but you want to surround yourself with people who have that experience. So when you're approaching people, you can show them, hey, here's what I've done. Here's what the rest of the team has done. So collectively, we feel really confident that we can go out and take down this deal. All right. The third C is going to be connections. So we've talked about confidence. We've talked about credibility. Connections is the next one. Now, most people assume that you have to raise money from your friends and family. Mm-hmm. And there's a little bit of truth to that, but I'm going to give you a better way of thinking of it. Let's say I'm opening up a bakery. All right. You like cupcakes?
Love cupcakes.
All right,
Can't
cool.
go wrong with
you
it.
Love cupcakes. Would you buy 5 dozen cupcakes for me?
How much are they? And what kind?
Doesn't matter. You gonna eat 5 dozen cupcakes?
No.
Okay. So most people are not trying to buy 5 dozen cupcakes at any random given moment of time, right?
Right.
So part of it is, while you might want to support my bakery, you probably don't want to buy 5 dozen cupcakes. So instead, if that's what I'm selling, and I tell you, hey, I only sell in bulk, or that's really what we do, then a better approach, instead of me asking Sam to buy my cupcakes, is to tell Sam the kind of people we help. Hey, Sam, I'm looking, here's my bakery. We work with people throwing large gatherings. So big parties, think about graduations, birthday parties, weddings. If you know anybody who is having one of those kind of events coming up over any time in the next 3 to 6 months, I would welcome an introduction to them, right? I've now set you up where if you're doing that, then you can say, hey, man, I'm having one here. Why don't we talk about it, right? Or I'd love to taste it and find out if it's a fit. But also, you can now think about who you know in your network that may be a fit. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my circle and I'm expanding it by tapping into your circle. So if you do that with the people you're connecting with, now you can build a network of people who have the money to invest in your deal. So while your auntie and your uncle may not have the money, they may know somebody else who is looking for an opportunity like this, who is already invested in real estate, or who already, maybe they came up and won the lottery. I don't know. But somebody who's looking to invest, right? May have a cousin who's an attorney, or, a friend who has a doctor and they're looking to park some capital. But that's what you want to do. You got to talk to people, and you want to take the connections you already have and you want to expand it. So the 3 C's to attract capital consistently: confidence, credibility, connections.
Love it. Love it. So for the listeners who haven't really experienced a deal like this, could you give like a high level of, how something like this can be structured, and just, I guess, a few of the moving pieces that someone should think about if this is something they want to do eventually and get into the large multifamily space?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to start is we do have a sample deal on our website. So you can go to casmoncapital.com/sample deal. And what I will say is we put that together because, this could be a lot for people, right? It's like, whew, got to take a breath, right? So let me give a little context, and I'll try to get into some of the deal structure things. So I think the first thing you have to think about is, well, why would somebody want to invest like this, right? Why not just buy a duplex, or, get a rental, or my own Airbnb, right? And the reason really comes down to time and professionalism. Time in the sense of, when you manage your own properties, like I was managing my own properties, then you have to be the manager, which means you now have a part-time job. Right? Something goes wrong, you got to figure it out. You got to create systems and processes, or tenants are just texting you and calling you, and you got to figure out the solutions, right? So how much time do you actually want to commit to this? Are there other passions that you have, family, sports, other activities you'd rather be doing than, responding to tenants? So I think you really have to think about the time commitment you want to make to real estate. And again, depending on where you're at financially and the time you have, you may not have many choices, and that's fine, but just think through that first. The second thing is professionalism, right? Goes back into the how, but if you've never run an Airbnb business before and you're launching an Airbnb business, the likelihood is that you're probably going to make some mistakes. And I'm sure you're okay with making some mistakes, but you are hoping not to make a huge mistake in that process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in investing in these larger deals, the advantage is, one, they're larger deals, which means that there's greater scale. Instead of 2 units where you're either going to be 100% filled, 50% filled, or 100% empty, we're going to be usually anywhere between 90 to 97% occupied at any given moment in time. At no point are we going to be 50% filled. If we're 50% filled, we have a huge issue, right? So there's more predictability on these larger things because they are larger. With that predictability allows us to forecast and budget and anticipate and plan, right? So we now know what our expenses are going to be roughly every month. Some months certainly will have a little uptick here or there, but it's not going to be these wild swings like you get on a 2 unit, right? You have 2 people move out on a 2 unit, you have no income coming in, and you got to replace the furnace. You wipe out your profits of the year, right? on a 200 unit, you have two people move out and you have to replace the furnace. It's Tuesday, right? Like that's a part of the plan of the business, right? So that's something that's really important. That professionalism and that scale allows you to hire full-time property managers that live on that site. That's what they do. They went to school for it. That's their business. They know it. They come with, 10, 15, 20, 25 years experience versus your 0 years of experience, right? And the point is, if you're starting out, by doing it that way, it may be easier for you because the likelihood of making a major mistake is less than you going out there and just, trying something by yourself for the first time. So with that said, and the people who I find being the best fit are people who are truly busy professionals, right? If you are doctor, engineer, IT executive, you're in sales, attorneys, those individuals, and corporate professionals too, if you're, director level or up at a corporate firm, those people have a lot of work, right? They've got a demanding job. They might have families. They may have, again, other things they want to pursue. So to become a part-time landlord or a part-time house flipper is just a lot, and it's not going to be worth their time. So those are the people who are really best suited for the deals we do. A deal structure for us is really simple. We do a 2-class split where basically we have our general partnership team. So we find the deal, we underwrite the deal, we manage the deal, we do everything with the deal. And then we have our limited partner team, and those are investors. All they do is review what we put in front of them. They ask us questions. I advise all of my people to really learn. So listen to podcasts like this so you can learn more about it. And then once you decide to invest, there's really nothing else you have to do. You'll get updates from us. You will get distributions each quarter, and you can ask questions and just be available. But it's very similar to maybe that 401k type of investment where you're getting that dividend or that distribution. The only difference is you can call the CEO whenever you want and say, hey, man, what's going on here? Or what do you think about that? And I'm accessible. And I think, again, even if you want to be active and run your own deals, it's still great to partner with someone like our group, because you now have access to me and you now have access to someone else who has a little bit more experience and can give you some advice or, kind of maybe help you out in different capacities. So there is a lot of value that comes from that approach as well.
Definitely love it. So take us to the time or the day when, you were able to focus on the business full time and walk away from your corporate career.
Yeah, man, that was an interesting time because, I mentioned that my why in doing all of this was I wanted to make sure that the rug never really got pulled from underneath me. I'm not a big quit your job kind of guy. Yeah. Listen, if you like your job, work that job, enjoy that job. Yeah. And I enjoyed my job. I know a lot of people don't like their jobs. I did. I was doing cool stuff, man. I was doing TV campaigns. I had, the Ice Cube commercials. I mean, we were doing a lot of cool stuff. But the reality is that I didn't control my time. And the moment I knew I was going to quit at some point was my oldest son turned 3 or 4, I think 3. And I couldn't be with him on his birthday. I had to go to a shoot. So I was in Atlanta for a TV shoot. I didn't want to go, couldn't get anybody else to go. Everybody else on the team was too junior. They had never really overseen shoots before, and the client was pretty demanding. And I just realized, man, no matter what they pay me, I don't control my time. And I'm missing my son's birthday. And I'm a person who prides himself on being a good father. And it's my measure of success. It's not money. It's the kind of father I am. Yeah. And there's a saying that I like to have is that you need to prioritize your priorities, right? And if I tell you my kids are my priority, but they're not really my priority, what am I saying about myself? So yes, there's an element to take care of your family and all that. I'm not trying to say you can't. Obviously, most people have to make sacrifices there. But I just realized at that moment, for me, I needed to make a change and started work, like I said, growing the business. And I left in 2019. I transitioned full-time when I moved here to Cincinnati. That was part of the process, was moving, leaving that job, going full-time into real estate and not looking back. And for me, it was it felt great. It also felt a little scary, just because there's more ebbs and flows, you know, and it just, you have some months where you're like, man, this is amazing. You have some months where it's like, man, it's just straight crickets up in here, right? So but it forces you to grow as an entrepreneur, to figure out how to serve more people. And I really do believe that if you come from a place of service, and if you are putting yourself in that person's shoes and you're asking, what do they need from me? How can I help them? If you're really doing that, then the answers become clear and you can help those individuals. So that's very rewarding. It's rewarding when my investors, you know, get their distribution checks, you know, and they're excited. Or I just did all the taxes. So distributed all these K1s that had these negative losses, and my investors are reducing their tax liability. It's amazing, right? So all the stuff we talked about, they're getting when we sell properties, and they get these, you know, they exceed the projections that we had. You know, we sold 3 properties in the last 12 months. So, you know, to go full cycle, it's a great feeling. So for me, those are wonderful things. We want to continue to do more of that for more people.
Definitely. And tell us more about Casmon Capital Group. You know, what do you have going on now? What the future plans are? Let us know what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you know, the company, we invest in large apartments. We do like Class B, which basically just means, you know, somewhat affordable, but nice and desirable locations, right? Places where people want to live, and they can pay rent. We like properties where we can add value. So we want to be able to, we call it force appreciation. So we're going to go in, we're going to devise a business plan of some sort. It might be, you know, renovating some of the units, or we're going to add some sort of amenity to the property. But whatever we're going to do, we're going to increase the income that the property produces. And that's how we drive returns and value for our investors. You know, we're always looking for deals. We do like the Midwest and the Southeast region. We're open to other markets, but though that's where our bread and butter is right now. We focus primarily in like Louisville, Cincinnati, Columbus. We do like Indianapolis a lot, but we haven't done a deal in Indianapolis yet. And then we have stuff in the Southeast region too. So we love the Carolinas. We are really interested in getting into Georgia, and we've done a lot of deals in Texas.
Love it. And you also have a podcast too that I want to make sure the listeners know about. I was checking it out today. I'm like, goodness, this guy has like 300 something episodes. That's incredible.
Man.
So make sure you all subscribe as well to his podcast. Very important. Us podcasters know how important that is. Leave a 5-star rating, review, all that stuff. But yeah, tell us more about the podcast. You spoke a little bit earlier about why you started it. And so, yeah, just tell us more about it.
Yeah, for sure. The show is called Multifamily Insights. So obviously we didn't go super deep on everything today, but if you are interested in multifamily investing, we sit down with multifamily professionals each week. Show is twice a week right now, and we're talking to people about tips and tricks to find good deals, build credibility, source deals, raise capital if you need to do that, as well as some marketing tips, because, you know, as you look to grow it as a business, part of it is going to be sourcing deals, whether you are a wholesaler or, you know, you're just trying to grow the acquisitions. So we'll talk about some little tips there, as well as raising capital. So how do you build a personal brand, launch a podcast, you know, get in front of people so you can get your name going. So that's a big part of what we do. But the show is called Multifamily Insights, and it is available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Definitely, man. So, you know, this has been such a dope interview. You know, I'm just thinking about it, and, you know, it all started with the duplex in Chicago.
Yeah.
It all started with the duplex in Chicago. You know, you were thinking about real estate. You wanted to invest for so long. You finally got started, and you know, I just think the sequence of events is just incredible. And I think it's inspiring too, and relatable, because, you know, many of us are probably starting and have started where you started. And many people probably aspire to get to where you're at now. So I just think, you know, it's an incredible journey, incredible story. And I can't wait to get our audience to listen to this.
Yeah, man. I just want to say one thing about the story is just, you know, it's very easy to get caught up in someone else's journey and what they've done and say, oh man, this dude's done 100 million in real estate. That's crazy. I want to do that. It is great. And it's great to be inspired. However, run your race, just figure out what's next for you and stay true to that. Persevere through whatever obstacles you're facing and get that next win. And then you can always evaluate what's next. But it can be very easy to compare yourself to someone else and maybe feel like you're not where you need to be or where you should be. And that is a bit tricky. So I would try to avoid that at all costs. You are where you're supposed to be, and when you are ready to take action, you do it, right? But you have to take action eventually. So educate yourself, learn and listen, but go. You've got to take the action if you want to see that, but don't rush the results, right? So I like to call it being patiently aggressive, where I'm aggressive with my actions, patient with the results, right? I can't make something happen, but I can make sure that I'm constantly taking actions to put myself in a position for something to happen. Does that make sense?
Mic drop. That makes sense. That makes sense. Awesome. That's a great way to end. It's interesting. I was going to ask, my next question is going to be, what's something you would advice you would give? So John, where can people find you? Where can people, they know where they can check the podcast out. Where can they keep up with what you have going on? And, reach out to you and so forth.
Definitely. The podcast is probably the big thing. The other thing I mentioned, that sample deal, that's going to get you on our newsletter. So we send out an email about once every other week. So we try not to pepper you too much, but give you great insights and great resources. So just download that sample deal. And then I'm also anywhere on social media. I do prefer LinkedIn and Instagram, but if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me there.
Awesome. Well, John, appreciate you coming on the show. Definitely inspiring.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the conversation today.
Definitely. And thank you to everyone for listening to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Again, if you haven't already, please be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review. Thank you all so much. I look forward to hearing from you all soon. Hi, everyone. Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.